Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Evan and welcome back to my channel for yet another video. Today you can see I have Blender open and enough caffeine to put down a small elephant. You know what that means. Time for another Blender tutorial. And today we're going to be covering a fan favorite. I'm going to be showing you a step-by-step process on how to use Greyhound if you've never used it, or if you've used it before but you only used my crappy old tutorials so you barely know what you're doing because those tutorials are terrible. And that's basically what I'm going to be doing here. I've learned a lot since when I first made those tutorials. There's a chance that you don't even know what I'm talking about because I'm going to private them after I publish this. But basically I had tutorials on how to do this back in the day, and they are super outdated and not, I don't recommend them to anyone, but people still like them, so this is my way of dealing with that. I'm going to make a brand new tutorial. This is going to be how to do everything that the old tutorials covered, completely all in one video, and then there's going to be some more, because as you can see in the background here, we have some Black Ops Cold War characters. And this is a Blender scene. We can move the camera around and whatnot and see just how detailed they are. It looks really cool. I've applied animations from in-game to them. I have a screenshot of shipment that I found online and matched up the background with F-Spy. Put on some blur to make it look good. But anyway, I'm going to be showing you how to do this. But the caveat I will say before we get into it is that this is only going to work, just Greyhound is only going to work with Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, not Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019, and then I think anything before that. So Black Ops 3, Black Ops 2, World War 2, all of those games, this extraction method should work. You should be able to run Greyhound, rip the assets, and port them into Blender. Basically no problemo. The only issue is with the newer games like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 and Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3. The problem with these is that they have Call of Duty's anti-cheat, Ricochet, which makes extracting files a lot more difficult. It doesn't work like at all, I'm pretty sure. And even if you could get it to work, there's a chance that you'd get like a hardware ban or something. So we just don't use Greyhound for that. It's not going to work. But the creator of Greyhound has two additional applications that do let you rip stuff from those games. There are two apps called Parasite and Cordyceps, and I plan on making tutorials on how to use those in the future. They do have a paywall. It's like $2 or something. It's really small just to support the creator, which is, you know, awesome. But anywho, let's get right straight into this. So first thing we're going to do, we got this intro out of the way. Now we need to download Greyhound. All right, let's get right to that. I'm just going to exit out of this, honestly. We don't need this. This was just to show you as an example. But now we're just going to go over to this. I have all of these. They're going to be linked in the description, and I'll tell you as we go what is linked and whatnot. But you'll find this in the description. It's the link to Greyhound. And what you're going to want to do is after you click on that link, go down to Releases, the latest release, and then download the zip file. And that should only take a couple of seconds, depending on your internet, you know. And then we're going to go find a spot that you want to put it in your computer. I'm going to put it in my SSD. You can see I've done this a couple times just to practice and get everything running smoothly. But let's see. Let's do a new folder. Call it 123 extract. Enter. And then we're going to go into it. And then I'm going to go into here. Go to my downloads. You'll see Greyhound here. And then drag it in, and then extract the zip file wherever you want it to be. Extract here. And then you'll see that you have Greyhound EXE and all this fun stuff. Okay, and now that we have Greyhound, the next step is to open up Call of Duty and load the files that we want to extract and whatnot. But before we do that, let's run Greyhound on its own. And just get the settings correct and install any updates if necessary right here. So it'll probably happen every time you install a fresh install of Greyhound. It'll have you update the package index, whatever, yada yada. Just download whatever it is, and it will, you know, help things run smoothly. And now that we have this open, just go ahead and go to Settings, and you're going to, in this first tab, this is going to determine what files you extract or load when you load the game. And right now we're going to be extracting models and animations, so X models, X anims are what we should have selected. But if you were just looking for a specific image, texture, or a sound file or what have you, you would uncheck the other things and check that. But by default, it's going to have these. That's what we want for now. And you can change the way that the assets are sorted by either name or details. Details will basically sort them by the number of bones they have and the frames per second, like how many frames the animations have. That's useful, but we don't need that. It's just if you're looking for certain models, sometimes you want to do that. And then under model settings, I'm going to change it from export Maya scene to export C model for this tutorial, and I like to export all available LODs. Now in anim settings, make sure it's set to C-anim, should be by default. Images, this is all default. You can change these depending on your own personal preferences and what have you if you are extracting those types of files. Now, to the in-game settings, yeah, this all looks good. So now when we load up the game, everything's all set and whatnot. Speaking of which, I'm going to boot up Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War because the next step is booting up whatever game you're extracting files from. So let's get to it. Oh, jeez, my computer is about to start running at a crispy 10 FPS because I'm running OBS recording with Black Ops Cold War running and everything, but it's not a big deal and everything should work fine. I don't need my game to be running at 1 billion frames per second to be extracting files, and neither do you. So even if you do have low specs on your computer, they should still work running at minimum graphics. Alrighty, and so what game mode do you want to load in? Basically, remember what I said. Whatever models you want to extract, you want to load into your RAM, your random access memory, which means getting them on screen or loaded up in the background. So say you wanted to extract files related to like zombie mode or whatever, I would heavily recommend booting up a round-based game of zombies or whatever, and just get into the first round or whatever, and then load your game, and then extract all the zombie models. But since we're just going after a specific character, in this case Weaver in multiplayer, that's exactly where we're going to go. So I'm going to open up multiplayer, and you can see he's already my selected operator. If we were looking for someone specific or whatever, if we wanted to load more than one operator at a time, maybe we would go to the character select screen. If we're looking for execution animations, we would preview those. But now that we have what we want on screen, we're just going to, we have Greyhound still open from before, and if not, you would just boot up the exe again, and just go ahead and press load game. It's as easy as that. And then you just need to find whatever model or animation or whatever you're looking for, and then extract it. Alright, there we go. And since we're looking for, the character Weaver, you can just start off by trying to type in their name. Sometimes that will work, sometimes that won't work. Different games have different naming conventions, and in this case, I know that Weaver will literally just pop up if you search his name. Unfortunately, you'll have some trouble sorting out which is which because there's obviously different skins for the character. So I would recommend, in this case, the character that I'm looking at right here, he has a distinguishing eye patch, which is more of a bandage. What I would normally do is look for a distinguishing feature on a character and then extract the head for a bunch of the different skins, and then look through the image files for distinguishing features or whatever. That's exactly what I did for this. So I know that it's Weaver _ Cosmodrome because I extracted all the heads and then saw that the Cosmodrome had the bandage texture, and then I knew to extract all the bits and pieces for that. So that's basically how you have to sift through this. I know that sometimes it's a little bit difficult to find what you're looking for, but just getting used to the naming conventions. Sometimes you have to look at the character stuff. Like in Cold War, you can see it's C_T9_ and then USA in this case because it's Weaver, and that's the the tag for his team, and then _ PO, probably people, and then Weaver. It's just, you'll get used to the naming conventions if you extract enough files. Weapons are different. I think they're like T8 or something. You can find snipers are like WPN _ sniper _ accurate, stuff like that. That's the naming conventions. Each weapon will have different basically code names in the files. Like I know that the sniper that I've been using is it's T9 accurate or something like that. But yeah, it's a little bit difficult to find the exact models you want depending on the Call of Duty. Black Ops Cold War especially is a little bit iffy because if you look under the animations and some of the models, there's a lot of unnamed files, which makes even searching through this directory almost impossible. In that case, I would recommend just sorting by like size and whatnot, like bulk extracting and then sorting by size and grouping them together. Like all of the finisher animations should be around the same size, so I would just import them into Blender and sift through them. I've done that in order to find specific animations, and then you just save or rename the animation. It's kind of a hassle, but enough of that. You don't need to know that right now. So now that we know which Weaver we're trying to get, it's Cosmodrome. That's the one that I have loaded up here, and I've already gone through and found out which one it is. So underscore Cosmodrome, search. And then you can either extract, I don't know off the top of my head what the difference between regular models and view body models are. I just get the regular ones, and that works pretty well, like the animations and everything work. I assume it's probably that view body animations will work better for first person animations. Don't quote me on that, I don't know off the top of my head. But yeah, let's just go ahead and click on the arms, and then control click the head, and then torso, and where is it? Lower body. Because Cold War models are funny because they are actually split into 4 different pieces, unlike other games like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019, where it's just 2 models, which is way more convenient, where it's body and head. But this game is extra spicy and difficult, where the file names don't make sense half the time, and the characters are split into 4 pieces. Yeah, it's whatever. But anyway, now that we have what we want, we're going to export selected. And just let that do its thing. Some soda ASMR. Alrighty, now that that's done, we can just delete this. I would also, if you plan on using animations, I would just export them in bulk, honestly. So let's just clear that out and press search again. And then you're going to see that it's going to sort anim first before model. So we're just going to click the first anim and then scroll all the way down until we start seeing models. Scroll up a little bit more. Alrighty, there we go, I found it. Here's the last anim. Now what I would normally do is shift click so that it selects everything, all the animations. But since I've already done this, I'm not going to extract them again, obviously. So now that we have everything we want, we can just quit out of the game so that my PC starts running a little bit smoother. And by PC, I mean laptop. I'm doing this on a laptop, but it's a gaming laptop, so it is what it is. And now that we have that set up, we're gonna need some plugins to get everything working in Blender. So just go ahead, and they'll be linked in the description, obviously. We have a C model add-on, and then we have a C anim add-on. They're both made by the same guy, or girl, I have no idea. But with this one, it doesn't actually have a release, so just go ahead and go to code, and then download the zip, and then import it as a plugin, which I'll show you how to do real quick. I already have it downloaded, so I don't need to. Same with the C anim. This one we can go to latest release, just like we did with Greyhound, download the zip. And while we're at it, we're also going to download the game image util exe. So we're downloading 3 different things. They'll all be linked in the description. You need all 3 of these to have everything running smoothly. If you get to a point where you're trying to import something and you can't, it's because you skipped this part. But yeah, just go ahead and download the latest game image util. And what I like to do is, after downloading it, which I already have because I recorded this tutorial already, we're just going to go to our downloads, game image util, and I like to just drag it into where I have Greyhound and unpack it with 7-zip. And now, I'm just going to delete that real quick. I would actually rather have it in its own separate folder. So what I'm going to do is create a new folder and then call it GIU, game image util. And then I'll go into there, and then drag and drop game image util zip, and then unpack it, extract here. Now I would just immediately boot it up after you've extracted your models, and then go back to Greyhound, and you're going to see this new folder called exported files, and open that up. And then it'll create directories for whatever you extract. So if you extract from different games, it'll do different directories all on its own. So I have Black Ops Cold War here. If I extracted models from Black Ops 3, there would be a Black Ops 3 folder, yada yada. And it does the same thing with models and animations and whatnot. So depending on what you extract will determine what folders you have. And you can see here that we have these, which contain the actual C model files. And then what we have here is the images folder, which contains all of the images that we have extracted. And what we have to do is press Control A and drag them into Game Image Util to process them. And then you'll see in here, once it processes, that we're actually going to have more images than we started with. And that might just take a moment, depending on your computer. But basically, when I was first starting with this kind of stuff, I had some issues because I wasn't doing this properly, and I was wondering, why are my normal maps so weird? Why do I have to like do all this weird stuff to get it looking kind of decent? And it's because I was skipping this step. So make sure you do this, and then we can just close out a Game Image Util. Just redo this process whenever you extract new models. It's not that hard. And then we're going to go back to Greyhound for now, and then we're ready to boot up Blender and start importing stuff. Okay, and I'm using Blender 4.0, which just released. This should work with just about any version of Blender as far as I know. I've done it on 2.8, 3. Whatever, and now 4.0. Maybe it won't work with like super duper old versions, but I think it does. I don't see why it wouldn't. First off, delete the default cube as per usual. The only difference between my tutorial in this version of Blender and another version of Blender is that the principled BSDF texture node will just be smaller on 4.0, but it has all the same inputs. You just have to click dropdowns for it. So if you're following along on an older version, it'll have all the same inputs. It'll just be a larger node, so it should be easy for you to follow along. So now that we have Blender open up, you're going to go to your preferences and actually install the add-ons that you've already downloaded. So you're going to want the C model add-on and the C anim add-on. You don't need the C anim if you don't plan on importing animations, I guess. Obviously, it's pretty useful and it's pretty cool, so that's why I'm including it in this tutorial. But you can technically just pose the models by hand. In that case, you and make thumbnails or whatever for your Call of Duty videos or do whatever. So if that was the case, you could just skip that, but I recommend just using both. So what you do is go to install, then downloads, and then if you sort by date modified, it'll be right on top. So like we have the C model right here, and then I also have C anim right here. So I would just install both of those add-ons and make sure that they're turned on, which for me they already are, so I don't have to. And what we're going to do is File, Import, C model, and then we're going to find where we have Greyhound installed, and that's in my S drive under 123 extract. Oh my god, my voice is getting hoarse because I've already recorded this, so I need to down some more Mountain Dew. Jeez, ooh. And then we just need to go to exported files, Black Ops Cold War, X models, and then we're going to have all of our model stuff here and our images, which we obviously don't need the images right now. It'll actually automatically attach the color textures correctly 99% of the time, so we don't have to worry about that just yet. So first, I like to import the arms. I have it sorted by size. You're going to want to import the largest model because that has the most geometry, which means most detail. It'll look the best in cinematic stuff. So we're going to import the C model, and first things first, you're going to see that it's huge, and that's a problem. So what I like to do is click one of these little spheres right here, and what this is, it's actually the skeleton of the model. Since it's a C model, this is just how they look. Instead of being like traditional bones, it's just spheres, but they work the same. What we're going to do is press S.02. And what that does is it scales it down by 0.02, obviously, which is a fraction of the original size. And we're going to do this with all of the models that we import. Make sure that you import them at a universal size. So we're going to do that with all these, all the parts of the character. Make sure it's 0.02, or in your case, if you want it to be bigger or smaller, just make sure you're using the same scaling increment so that everything's consistent. Same with weapons. If I were to import a weapon into this scene, like like what I was talking about earlier, the T9 _ sniper _ accurate, I would import it and then scale it down by 0.02, just so that it matches the size of the character, obviously. And now that we have the arms here, what we're going to do is we're going to import the rest of it. Go up. Next up, it's the head, and we'll see that the head lines up after we scale it down, of course. Okay, and then File, Import. This is where things start getting a little bit wonky, and you're going to be glad that you have my tutorial to help you. We're going to import the lower body. And you're going to see that it's not in the correct orientation. Oh, I think I scaled it down too much. There we go. And then, last but not least, the torso. C model. There it is. Make sure you get the highest LOD. And I know what you're saying. Oh no, Evan, my model's all different parts. Nothing's connected. What do I do? Oh no. Well, I'm going to show you right now. See, what all these skeletons have in common is that they all have a main root that overlaps. So what we're going to do is I like to use the arms. In this case, Black Ops Cold War is particular. You could do this. It'll be a lot easier in other games, but Black Ops Cold War, definitely one of the more wonky ones to extract from. But we're going to click on the skeleton that we want to use as our base skeleton. In this case, the arms. Go to pose mode, and then right down here at the pelvic area, we can find the main root. And we're just going to, we actually don't need to do anything on this for now. So we're just going to back out and then go to the head model and then go to pose mode and then go to object constraint. And then we're going to add a copy transforms modifier and set it to, I'm just going to type in arm. And it'll be the top one here, arms underscore LOD7 in my case. And then I'm going to type in main root. And you don't even need to type it half the time. It'll be right at the top. But you're going to see that this looks really weird for some reason. One second. What's going on here? Oh, I see. I just made a little bit of I made a mistake that maybe you'll make as well. I've been doing this like all day, and this is the first time I've done it, surprisingly. But you'll see that this made a big mistake. Right here, you'll see that it didn't go to the right spot because when I did the copy transform modifier, I did it in the object constraint tab instead of the bone constraint tab. Easy mistake to make. But we're just going to go back to there, copy transform. The target's going to be arm, and then we'll see right here, LOD skeleton. And then we're going to set it to main root. You can actually see it right here. Don't even have to type it in. And boom, it's going to overlap perfectly. And we're just going to rinse and repeat this process for the other two parts of the body, which should not take long. So grab this. That's not what we want. Come on. And I'm using a new mouse and keyboard, so like I'm kind of slower than I usually am, which is kind of funny. But okay, so pose mode, and then go to the main root. Bone constraints, and you can see the name of your bone right here, so you can know it's the right one by J underscore main root. It's right over here. And then bone constraint, copy transforms, arm. Oh, that's what I mean. This is a new keyboard. I'm used to doing it straight on the laptop. But there we go. And then switch to the main root. Maybe this will be helpful for people to follow along since I talk too fast sometimes. But now, last but certainly not least, is the torso and main root. And you can see that the person that you are making is all in one piece. And this is the exact same process that you would do for a weapon. Once again, if I were importing that sniper I was talking about earlier, I would import the receiver, all of the attachments, the scope, everything that I wanted, and then I would attach it at the main root or the attachment slots for the weapon. You'd do the same exact methodology, basically. But now that we have that out of the way, you can see that if we just move the arm rig, it'll move the whole character, and then we'll have to apply animations to each section individually, but when we do, it's going to match up perfectly, and you won't be able to tell the difference because they're all aligned. So, now's the fun part. We get to actually texture the model. And you can see here that we're starting off with some fun stuff. We've got some hair cards. We've got, there's a beard shell here. That's going to be fun to work with. And while we're texturing, I'm just going to click and then shift click in order to hide the skeletons because I don't want them in the way when I'm texturing. They're just not visually appealing. And now we can just go over into the shading tab. And I like to start at the top of the character. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you the basics. So we're going to start with the hair cards, beard shell, whatnot. And then, oh, 1 second. It looks like the storage on the iPhone I'm using for recording is full. But luckily, you don't really need my visual input for this portion of the video. I'm just going to double check that the video wasn't corrupted real quick. Okay, it looks good. I'll probably clear up some space when I want to do my outro or whatever. But for now, we don't have to worry about it. I'll just show you how to do all this texturing nonsense. But you can see here, this black part, I'm going to grab... Wait, no, that's not it. There we go. This black part right here, this is the beard shell. And this is like the stubble, you know? And this is actually really easy. We're going to click on this. You can see the node setup we have here. It's the principled BSDF. And then it automatically puts in the color texture for us when we import it using CModel. And we can actually see a little preview over here in the corner. And since it's like there's already an alpha built in, you can see the checkerboard in the back. That means that we can just plug in alpha to alpha and then go over into the texture tab, scroll down, set blend mode from opaque to alpha hash twice. And then bada bing, bada boom, you can see that it's already looking more like a beard. And that's really straightforward and easy. And it's actually super detailed. And then for this, sometimes hair cards will come with their own textures and stuff. We'll get into more detail on how to find the different textures and stuff in a moment. But I like to get the hair cards out of the way first because, you know, they can be unsightly when they're not dealt with. But basically, we're just going to manually set the roughness for now, because this is just an example. And we're just going to do the same thing over here. Color. And every once in a while, I like this because it's an example of a bit of a mess up on the importing end of things. But this is supposed to be the color, and it actually isn't the right color. I'm pretty sure Weaver's beard is supposed to be black. And even after we plug in the alpha to the alpha and set blend mode to alpha hashed and alpha hash, you'll see that it's the incorrect color because, you know, Weaver is supposed to have a much darker colored beard. So what we're just going to do is unplug the base color and we can just do our own thing. We can just set it to like a blackish. There we go. Easy peasy. And that's the thing. When we're importing models and stuff into Blender and extracting stuff, we have a lot of creative liberty. You can do whatever you want with these. You can make them, you can give them a different colored beard if you want. But this is just a time saver, and I want to move on to the more fun stuff, so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail with the facial hair right now. Now that we have that dealt with, let's get right into it. This is probably one of the more complicated things to texture on a character, and it's their face, their head. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to this. This is the color texture. You can see that in the preview. And we're just going to copy the name of this, and we're going to go into our Greyhound folder and go into Extract, Exported Files, and then our Models tab, and then go to Images. This is where we've already ran COD Image Util. And what we can do is go to Search Images, Control V, and we can find the image texture. But better than that, if we hit delete a couple times until we get to the _C, delete the C, and we can find other textures to go with it. And if more textures don't pop up, just keep deleting until they do. Or you might have to try and search the thing. Like if you're looking for textures for the vest of the character, type in vest, yada yada. It's pretty straightforward. But right now we can see we have multiple textures here. We have this, which ends in _N, which is the normal map. And then we have this, which is _G, which for these characters, for this Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, is actually the roughness input. And I'll show you how to do both of those. Both are pretty important. We're just going to drag and drop in both. Now, for this, we're going to see it in the preview. I recommend turning on Node Wrangler in your, if you go to Edit and then Preferences and then Add-ons and type in Node Wrangler. I recommend turning that on because it lets you do this. Is if you just want to preview a texture, you can press Control-Shift-Click and then see that. And you can get a lot of context, and it'll help you figure out how to texture your character. And this is a black and white image that's going to be plugged into the roughness value. So what we're going to do is we can just take this and then set the color space to non-color, since it's a black and white image, and then plug the color into roughness. And we can't see a difference right now because I'm still previewing it with Node Wrangler. Just go ahead and Control-Shift-Click the principled BSDF to get back. But you can see the character is looking a little bit more shiny than he was before because we're plugging in the roughness values. And then next up, which is arguably the most important texture for character detail wise, we're going to be plugging in the normal map, which is right here. These goofy looking things, which helps you add so much detail to your character. Now we're going to do Shift A, search, normal map, right here. And there's something that I'm going to do that I only do with the skin of characters with Call of Duty models. And that is, we're also going to Shift A, search, bump. I don't do this with most of the character because a lot of the times it doesn't look good, but with the faces, I've noticed that it helps add an extra level of detail. Is, normal map plugged into a bump map plugged into the normal. So, what we're going to do is color space, set it to non-color on the normal map that you dragged in, and then plug the color output into the color input of the normal map, and then you can actually just drag this straight into the normal of the principled BSDF, which is what you're going to do a lot of the times. Make sure that the strength is set to 1, and you're going to see right here, it's already added a ton of detail. If we unplug the base color and then switch to a better lighting condition, like this, we can see how much detail was just added. If we unplug the normal map, there's nothing, but if we replug it in, we can literally see the pores of the character. So that's a huge change. But if we take the normal map, plug it into the height and the normal, the bumped node, set the strength to 0.1, and then plug that into normal, you can get even more detail, depending on the texture. Most of the time, this will only work with skin textures, but if we go ahead and undo that, really zoom in, and then redo it, if you're using a low-res thing to view this video, I doubt that you can even see a difference, but up close with a higher resolution monitor, it's just a lot more crispy. So I like to do those with the skin textures, usually on the face, arms, and hands, specifically exposed skin. But now we're going to replug in that, where'd the base color go? We're going to drag that back down and plug it back in. And right now, we have a pretty snazzy looking skin texture. And if we just go to these hair cards over here, we have the eyebrows, we can see that it has an alpha, so we're just going to plug in the alpha and change the blend mode to alpha hash, yada yada. Pretty easy. Turn up the roughness. A lot of the times these will have their own normal maps and underscore G textures, the black and white ones, which you plug into roughness. But, it's just not worth the effort sometimes. And in this case, where I'm just doing a quick tutorial, then I'm not going to do it, But we can just do this with the hair too, just drag this over, plug in the alpha. And I will say, if this, for whatever reason, doesn't work for you, then that means that there's probably an alpha texture that was extracted with the character. Cold War models, it's baked into the color texture, the albedo. But if you find a black and white texture that's labeled alpha underscore A, something like that, and it's black and white, and it's shaped like the hairs with the hairs are black and the rest of it's white. Actually, it'll be the other way around. It'll be a black background with white hairs. You can plug that into the alpha instead, and that will also work the exact same way that we're doing here. And we'll see the character's looking a little bit better right now. We haven't touched the eye patch yet or the eyelashes, but before we do that, since, I'm not really worried about this, I already have this character all textured. I've already gotten the hard work out of the way. Right now, I'm just trying to educate you guys. So we're going to be moving down to the torso where I'm going to show you some new stuff. So let's look at this. We're going to move this color texture out of the way, and then we're going to click on this, Control C, open up our images again, and then Control A, Control V, and then delete all the way to C. And we're going to see the normal map didn't pop up. So what we're going to do is we can see that it's called Russian Vest Tactic. We can just copy this part and then Control A, Control V, and Vest. And we can see just through context clues which textures are supposed to go here. It's these ones right here. These are the textures we're looking at. Ignore these. This is a mask texture. it's used like for use cases that you don't have to worry about. But what we're looking at are the color underscore C, normal map underscore N, the roughness input, which is underscore G, and then right here there's even an underscore S, which is a metallic input, which is handy. And then all the way down here, you might have missed it if you didn't type it in properly or whatever, if you have to scroll down a bit, but this is actually an underscore O, which is an occlusion map, which are fun too. And that's about all the different kinds of textures, which makes this torso a great example. So let's drag and drop in the normal map, metal map, like a roughness map, and I always forget what this one's called, even though I just said it. The occlusion map. It's basically shadows. But I'll explain how all of these work. So you already know what underscore G is, which is the roughness. So we're going to set this to non-color. Then drag color into the alpha of the roughness. And then boom, we get what we want. Which, if we preview it, you can see that the light is more matte and the dark is more shiny. And you can see that the blood splatter is going to be shinier. So if we switch back to principled, we can see that in action here. Where the rest of the outfit, pretty matte, and then the blood texture is very shiny. So that's how you know it's working properly. And then underscore S is the metal that I was talking about. So if we preview this, we can see that the dark is non-metallic and the light is metallic. So these little buckles are going to shine after we put this in. So, what we're going to do is the exact same thing as the underscore G input, only we're going to switch it to non-color, the same, but plug the color into metallic. So it's really straightforward. And now you can see that this is just that much shinier and adds that little bit of realism to the model. It's a lot more useful on things like firearms, where it makes it's almost you have to have it on the texture. But for this, you could technically skip over it since it's such a minor detail. I'm just doing it for the sake of example, and I would probably do it anyway. But next up is the normal map, which since this isn't like a skin texture or whatever, we're just going to do normal map, plug color into color, but wait, make sure you have the color space set to non-color. And now you're good to just plug normal into normal of the principled BSDF, and then boom! Look at that difference. We can hit Control Z, and look at the difference in detail. It's so flat without the normal map. Yeah, normal maps are literally magic. Like, this texture here fakes all of this detail and these shadows and whatnot at almost zero computational power. That's why they're so prevalent in AAA games, indie games, it doesn't matter. All modern video games and even older games use these things because they're so good. And you're going to make sure that you put these on all of the different parts of your model. Otherwise, it'll look flat and weird, and you just don't want that. So now that we have all those textures inputted, what we're going to do is just rinse and repeat that for the rest of the model. So for the hair, you're going to make sure that all the alphas are plugged in, any like textures or whatever. Do the exact same thing that you did for the body, for the hair, if you want that extra bit of detail. We're going to do that for this. It's kind of tedious since, I'm doing all this by hand. But after all your hard work, you should have a guy that looks like this. I know, he's pretty spiffy, right? I will say there's a couple tips and tricks that I will give you if you want to go above and beyond to get a certain look for your models. Number one, this is the most important one, especially for Cold War models, because this is an issue that you'll probably run into, is the eyes. If we click on this, the eye just... it's literally the texture that it loads with your character is broken. Like, it just doesn't work. So I had to go into the files and find the only eye texture that I could find that actually worked properly. And that was, let me see. It's this one. It won't be with your character. You're going to have to go into the game, go into Greyhound, extract images, and search eye underscore... where is it? Here's the name of it right here. I underscore brown underscore C. This is what you're looking for. The rest of the eyes have a really weird thing where they're like 99% opaque, like completely transparent, and they just don't work. I don't know. I'm probably just an idiot who doesn't know how to use a texture. But to circumvent that problem, what I did was I found this eye texture, plugged color into color, And then I created my, since I knew that I was doing it for Adler initially, and also I did it for Weaver here, because I didn't want him to have brown eyes, I created my own, basically, it's a mask that separates the iris from the, whatever it's called, the white of the eye. And I used the color ramp to do that. So what you would do is Shift A, search color ramp, and then plug that in and drag the black down and the white up a little bit in order to basically create this mask. And what this does, it lets us... Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot to show you guys something. So we can see over here, it's the same character thing, but the underscore O texture, which is the, it's the occlusion map, which basically is like a shadow map, which lets you add a lot of extra, you know, detail to your character and give it a more like gritty look that looks really good in like real-time rendering. What you're going to want to do is I'll just delete this so I can show you. So normally you'd have your color hooked up, and this is what your character would look like. It looks good. You don't necessarily need to use this. It's going above and beyond. If you don't want to, no one's forcing you to do this. It's really going above and beyond. But if you want to have your occlusion map on your character's model, go ahead and look for a mix color node and put it between your color and your principled BSCF. So plug color into A, and then switch mix to multiply, and then plug this, the black and white occlusion texture. We're going to want to plug this into B. And what that does is it adds a lot of extra shadows to your model, and it looks good in real-time rendering. So I recommend setting this to like 0.7. I learned this in a tutorial by this guy. He does like really good like Blender, like just like 2-minute tutorials. Like he has one on like IK armatures and stuff. Like I know that it doesn't look like it does any difference, but if you mess around with the factor, you can see that it actually adds a lot of detail, and that's because it's overlapping and multiplying these two textures to give you a more detailed output. It's above and beyond. It's kind of overkill in my opinion, but it does look kind of cool. And if we go back to the eye thing, because I distracted myself, I do have ADHD, so bear with me. If we go back to this eye texture, what I was trying to explain is that I have the eye color here, the color texture, and I didn't like the way that it looked because I wanted it to be blue. So I used the color ramp to create this mask, and then I did basically the same thing. I added Shift A, mix color. It'll be called Mix RGB on older versions of Blender, I believe. And then in this case, instead of multiply, I set it to color, and I plugged this black and white mask into the factor. You'll want the center to be white and the outsides of the eye to be black. And then what this lets you do is if you plug the color into the A, then in B, it will actually let you do whatever color you want for the iris. So if we go ahead and switch over into the rendered view, and then change this, you can actually change the color to whatever you want. And in this case, it's like a very light blue. And that's pretty handy, if you ask me. And an example of creative liberty and just fine-tuning your model. I did something similar with the character's face over here, where I thought that the streaks of red should have been more shiny. I didn't like the fact that it was very matte. If we look at the underscore G, which is his roughness texture, there's actually nothing where the blood is. So that means that it's just going to be the same texture as the rest of the face. But what I did is I created color ramps to kind of, I took the color texture, used the color ramp to basically make another specular texture, like a roughness texture, that just had the blood on it. And then I used the same technique with a multiply as I did for the occlusion texture in order to create a combination of the two. So we have the underscore G that we got out of the box, and then we have this, which is basically the same thing that I made with the color texture and some color ramps. And then we have that set up the same as we did with the torso. We look at this. It's the exact same thing, but for the face and our own custom thing. And the end result is it just makes it so that the streaks of red are a lot more shiny, as opposed to if we just plug this in on its own, it'll be like very opaque, and it'll just be identical on each side. And I thought that was kind of lame, so I went in and went above and beyond for that. And also, if you're using Eevee, I recommend setting, you can actually add a subsurface, thing to make the skin look more like skin. So this is without it. It looks very, very plasticky, but if you turn up the weight on the subsurface, you can actually get a more like skin tone kind of feel to it, which is pretty handy. This is the part where it goes out of my hands and into more like, you're going to want to talk to someone who knows more about what they're doing with texturing. Like I know some people, like in my Discord, there's a guy, Simpy, he is amazing. He's a wizard when it comes to texturing and stuff. I'll put some of his work up on screen. Like, my stuff looks good. His stuff looks literally cinematic. Like, I can't get my stuff to look as good as his does. I go for a more stylized look, and his is fantastic. He said that he was planning on making a tutorial on how he does his skin stuff at some point in the near future. So be on the lookout for that, I guess. You know, could be pretty cool. But now that we have the texturing and stuff all set on this character, we can go ahead and he's ready for an animation. Now, like right now, as is, we can pose the character. If we click on the skeleton and go to pose mode, we can click on these little circles and they control the character. And you can just create your own poses, do whatever you want, create thumbnails and whatnot pretty easily. But you can also use files that you extracted from the game. So if we go to, I actually have like something in mind. I actually have some animation things right here that I saved, which we can just copy and paste. But you'll see what I mean right here. Like, look at these, look at the naming conventions for these animation files. I literally had to download them in bulk, import a bunch of them into Blender, and sift through them to find anything that was useful. That's one downside about Cold War, is that it's like, it's really weird. But now we can just go to File, Import, Cyanim, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, I don't have the animations in what we were just doing. I have it in a separate directory where I was doing my other stuff, but it doesn't matter. For you, it'll be in your directory, but I can just paste that in, or you can look for your own stuff, just try random animations, but just go to any of the Cyanims and you can just click on it and import it onto your character. Some of them will make your character go off in a random place, and to fix that, I like to anchor the model. And one way of doing that is going back into object mode, Shift A, and then we can do an empty plane axis. And then since this, like the arm skeleton, controls the rest of the character, you can just do it for this. But let's go into pose mode and go to that main root, and then go to bone constraints. And we can actually add a constraint to the main root of this one. So what we're going to do is something very similar. We're going to do copy transform. Actually, we're going to do, I like to do copy location for this. I think that'll work. And we can just do empty. And I like to do everything except for the Z. And what that will let us do is, actually we can do Z as well if we wanted to, but I'm not going to. Now if we import the animation, File, Import, Cyanim, it'll still be there from before. Import Cyanim. You can see you stayed in the same spot instead of going 20 feet in a random direction. But you're going to have to do that same process for the rest of the model. So select the, I'll select the torso next. Actually, that's the head. It doesn't matter either way. File, Import, Cyanim, Import. It'll keep it in your like clipboard, so you can just do this over and over again without looking for the animation again. Then we can do the torso, File, Import, Cyanim, same one. And last but not least, we have to do this for the legs. Like I said before, in other game extractions, this should be easier. Like it'll probably just have a head and body. Cyanim, import. Yeah, if you can do this with Cold War models, you can do this with anything. But you can see here the character. If we just go ahead and press play, he's doing an animation. It's one of the character things when you select them. It'll do this like neat, cool little character animation, and you can find literally everything in the file. So you can find, you know, the takedown, finisher animations. You can find the reload animations. Literally everything. Why does this look weird? 1 second. I saw it in pose mode. Is that just the way that that looks? Okay, there we go. And I think that's about it. Animations can be a little bit more complicated than that. And also, everything's the same with weapons for characters. You can literally follow this entire tutorial, but replace the torso with the receiver and replace the head with the sniper scope. Everything works exactly the same. So I won't need to make a separate tutorial on guns. And if I do, it'll be very brief because it'll just be a lot of the same. And I just wanted to make this video to basically right the wrongs of past Evan, because he made a mediocre tutorial that everyone liked, and I'm just like, why do you guys like this? I hate it. Because I tried privating them, but I was getting comments that people still wanted them as a resource or thought that they were very helpful in the past, and I was like, okay, fine, I guess I'll come out of retirement and make this like updated version of the tutorial. And I do plan in the future to make tutorials for Parasite and Cordyceps, which is the applications that you'll need to, along with Greyhound, download files from 2019, Modern Warfare 2, the new one, Modern Warfare 3, all of the games with Ricochet, you'll need the newer applications from Scrubula. And I'll have links to their Discord, and you can find resources there if you want to try it on your own. I will be making a tutorial at some point. Do not use any of these for commercial purposes. You know, this is meant to be educational, okay, guys? This is how I started with Blender, like finding extracted assets online, downloading them, figuring out how to use the normal maps and the roughness textures and everything. Everything that I'm showing you, I literally taught myself. And back then, I would have given anything for someone to have had like quick and easy tutorials on that kind of stuff, which I found bits and pieces here and there, but a lot of it was just me messing around with stuff. But I feel like I've got a lot better at it over the years than I was when I made those old tutorials. So now I can put this up, private those old videos, and this will be a much better resource for people to use. And I don't know, it's just really cool. I've seen a lot of people make some really cool stuff. I'll put up some images right now, but it's really neat seeing people like make cinematics and everything and say that they use my tutorials and how helpful they were and whatnot. Yeah, and it's just really cool, and I'm happy to help when I can. Life's been hectic, so I would have loved to have made this sooner, but, you know, is what it is. I'll also put links to Scrubula's Discord, because, you know, they're the people that actually, like, make this stuff, and they have, like, if you go to their help forums, it's so helpful. Like, you can find a lot of answers that you're looking for there just by searching through their conversations. If you have a question, 3 other people have already had it, and it's been answered for the most part. And I think that's where I'm going to end the tutorial. I hope that you guys are having a wonderful day or night, wherever you may be, and adios.